Welcome to More Than Dentistry, where your hosts Evert and Waldo discuss life, dentistry, and everything in between with dentists around the world.
Hello and welcome to the More Than Dentistry podcast.
All right. Hello and welcome to More Than Dentistry. I'm Waldo Engelbrecht, and today I have a very special guest, someone very dear to my heart, and so dear that I'm actually married to her. This is Stephnie Engelbrecht. She is a registered dietitian. Welcome, Stephnie.
Thank you, Waldo. I'm very pleased to be here.
It's not always that we have the time or, when do we talk English to each other?
Maybe during a role play of some sort, eh?
Tell me quickly, what is a registered dietitian and what's the difference between a registered dietitian and, let's say, a nutritionist?
That's a very good question. So a registered dietitian is a healthcare professional registered under the Health Professionals Council of South Africa. So we do very medical-based degree. It can either be a BC Dietetics or a B Dietetics degree, depending on at which university you study. And we are the only health professionals able to assess, diagnose and treat medical conditions with a nutritional component linked to it. So yeah, that's what makes us unique and different to nutritionists per se.
So, well, what is it that a nutritionist then does?
So a nutritionist, first of all, isn't regulated by the HPCSA. So anybody who knows a little bit about healthy eating or can read up, you can do like a 6-hour course almost, or a weekend course on healthy eating and the principles of healthy eating, for instance. I'm not to say that all nutritionists only do a short course like that. There's really some nutritionists who really do know their story, but they are not allowed legally to do any medical nutrition therapy. It's only registered dietitians who can do that.
And medical nutrition is obviously sick people, but what type of conditions is people that need to go and see a dietitian?
Ooh, I've made a list here because we tend to forget or don't think about referring to an RD. If you see as a dentist, if you see these patients in your chair, for instance, maybe that can be something you can think about as well. People with diabetes, type 1 or type 2. Insulin resistance or polycystic ovary syndrome, endometriosis, high cholesterol, arthritis, gout, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel syndrome. That's conditions like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. People or patients with malnutrition, sometimes what comes to mind is cancer-related malnutrition, or you get malnutrition just because of restrictive eating and binge eating. That's also another thing that I've almost forgot to put on my list. Is people with eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, and bulimia nervosa, and binge eating syndrome, those type of things. Gastroesophageal reflux disease, kidney disease of all sorts, metabolic syndrome patients, hypertension, obesity in itself is quite a story, osteoporosis, breastfeeding, ICU nutrition, and allergies, of course. And the list can go on, but I'll stop there.
Okay. And then what was your trajectory in dietetics as a field? Where did you start off, and how did your career progress to what it is today?
It took a little bit of a sidestep, and it was quite an interesting path I took, and I will never ask for a different way of doing these things. My passion, and I think 90% of all students who go and study dietetics lied in ICU nutrition, wanting to work with really sick people, really looking into the medical side, with someone lying there in the bed and they're really sick and they need your support, what to do. It's quite interesting. Where I then ended up for quite a long time is in the industry, working as a medical rep, or a product specialist is another way of calling yourself. For a very big pharmaceutical company, working and focusing on ICU nutrition. So it was absolutely fantastic working with other registered dietitians, being able to consult with them and so forth. So it was nice.
So if you talk about ICU nutrition, what is that? I mean, how do you feed people that are in ICU? I mean, it's actually quite prominent at the moment with people that are in ICU as a result of COVID and so on.
Yes, so most of the patients in ICU are sedated. So it is interesting. It is actually quite a good question. So you get something like enteral nutrition, which is feeding the patient via the enteral tract, the GI system. And obviously when they are sedated, you need to put a tube down either into the stomach or all the way through to the duodenum, and sometimes even via the outside surgically inserted into the jejunum, basically. So that is one route. And if that can't be tolerated because of many different reasons, then there's something called TPN, or total parenteral nutrition, that is actually feeding directly into the bloodstream of the patient, and to make sure that they get optimal nutrition. And then obviously there you can do a combination of the two feeds, because the main priority is to use the gut and get the gut working at the end of the day. And then lastly, it's always good to supplement with oral nutritional supplements, like a special drink, and everyone's needs are different. So that is the little calculations a dietitian would do in the ICU for a patient.
Okay. So you were in the medical industry, I would say, and then you moved over again to private practice.
Yes, that was, and you know what? My practice will be a year old very soon, on the 1st of August. What?
Cool.
Must remember to celebrate. Yeah, so we moved over to private practice. Just, I think it was time. I think with the children growing up a little bit and me actually being on the road quite often. Well, it wasn't that often, but once every 6 weeks, getting a good ritual, and then sometimes in between as well, traveling to Joburg for some cycle meetings or sales meetings, which was obviously great and fantastic. But yeah, I think the children and you needed me to be a bit more stable at home, I think. Yes, keeps me busy. Gives me something to do in the mornings. And it's always good to feel that you have a purpose to really get up and make and impact someone else's life. And I actually do get quite a lot of job satisfaction still with patients or clients telling me that they feel better and that they can see the difference in, let's say, some blood work that's being done, or and they can see the change.
Yeah, I think before we get there, when we started off with just the idea of starting a private practice, what was your vision of a private practice that is going to be a fulfilling job for you? And were there any special interests that you thought, or maybe one piece of nutrition that is probably neglected? Do you have a specific focus that you probably focus on more at this stage?
Yes, I would say I found my joy in women's health. I do enjoy working with women. I just click very nicely with females. It's not to say that I don't see males or men in my practice. There are quite a few coming in. And Yeah, so women's health in specifically focusing on polycystic ovary syndrome or endometriosis or fertility and that type of thing, because there's actually quite a lot of challenges these days, with hormonal health and those type of things. So I do enjoy that and helping these women. And I wanted to do it differently. I always, when in the beginning, just as we chatted about when I was still thinking about doing this new thing, I said I don't want to do a one and done session type of practice, because you can't do miracles or sit in front of a patient and help them with 1 hour consultation. There's just too much information that needs to be shared. And first of all, you need to collect so much information from the patient before you can even start educating. And then some patients don't understand, hey, was this not that? Was this not this? However, the dietitians don't always get the chance to properly educate and talk about every little aspect for the patient. So I decided to do, packages or bundles of sessions that that I prefer the patient or the client to commit to. And in that way, it helps with accountability, because that's a big deal as well. They know if they need to come back to you, and you ask them to implement 1 or 2 things maybe for the next week or 2. And if they come back, you're going to ask some feedback on it and how that went. So I find that works very well. And obviously, the patients who do prefer to come to see me, they know about it and they want to implement it and they want that approach in the first place. So,
Yeah, so it's not always, people don't only come for the advice, they definitely more come for the accountability that they have someone to report to. This is how I've been feeling about this and this, because nutrition's not only what you put in your mouth, it's about a lifestyle overall.
Yes, definitely. So it's the lifestyle changes. So and obviously everything that I share there will always be evidence-based. That's the thing that registered dietitians do. We can't just waffle and talk about airy-fairy things. So everything you say, you must be able to substantiate that or back that with research, findings. So instead of just talking about food, because that can become really boring for me at the end of the day if you think about it. And then also you will not have the same impact if you just talk about the food side of things, when there is so much more to talk about. For instance, stress levels and sleep and your exercise and the type of exercise you do, how often and how long, and those type of things. And the list goes on. So
hormones and age.
Yeah, it influences, obviously all those factors influences your endocrine system quite a lot, and that's probably why I enjoy seeing those type of patients, because it can become very interesting.
Okay. What about when we talk about airy-fairy things? Now we have people proclaiming this is the new wonder drug that's going to let you lose centimeters and kilograms. And then just as on a side note, tell you to eat vegetables and some fruit, and
or calling it will only be work optimally with this when you follow a kilojoule restricted diet. Very conveniently forgetting to mention that side of the story when selling the supplements, either diet pills or some stimulants or micronutrients or whatever is in the magic drugs. So that is very frustrating for us as registered dietitians, because again it looks like a quick fix. So that's a problem we have, is it's not individualized nutrition. Everyone's, as I've mentioned, everyone's needs are different, and what's safe for one patient or one person is not safe for another person to follow or to supplement with in the first place. So it can become, so it's like a two-edged sword. So
Is there something that can hydrate you better than water? Let's say you need to take this tablet to actually hydrate yourself better, and then you're going to lose all those kilograms.
no, that's unfortunately not true. What some of these tablets contain is just soluble fiber, actually, which is a good way of, if your diet includes higher levels of soluble fiber, the job of the soluble fiber is to pull water into the lumen of your gut and hold some more water. If you actually drink more water, which they do say you need to do, you have to up your complete water intake together with this supplement. And so it's basically the more water that you're drinking, it's flavored water with some electrolytes and some soluble fiber in. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to some of the other strange things like diets, like let's, for argument's sake, say something like in South Africa, banting was very popular. Does it have a place in, let's say, in weight loss, or let's say keto is like a form of banting, or banting is a form of keto? Or I mean, people just get lost in every month they're on, now they're vegetarian, now they're banting, and now they can't, now they're allergic to sugar, and then they want to do this and do that. What is something that, just as a baseline for someone that's frustrated with all this information out there, what is a basic thing that they can follow by just starting with something if they feel that they need to make a change?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to, first of all, make sure that you hydrate optimally. It is true that sometimes you experience hunger because you're actually dehydrated. So it's important to drink sufficient amount of fluid in the day, not to overhydrate, because that's also dangerous. And so just to find the balance between in the complete intake. And that's also a specific amount. It's not 8 glasses of water for everyone every day. So it's between 20 to 30 milliliters per kilogram per day, just to give you an idea, roughly, if you need to work it out for yourself. And then the easiest way to explain a good, healthy way of eating is the plate model, basically. It's not a very sexy message. It's very simple. So what that means is a quarter of your plate should contain some type of healthy carbohydrate source. So I can go into much detail about the carbohydrates that's good for your health and those who are less good for your health and why, etc. and so forth. But we need carbohydrates because your brain's main need is carbohydrates. Anyway, so that's a topic on its own. We must talk about it one day. And the other quarter of your plate should contain lean protein sources. So I can go into detail about that and the way you prepare your food. And then the half of your plate, we need to take in more plant-based foods. Because, yes, there's an endless list of benefits for increasing your plant intake. So that includes your fruits and your vegetables. And lots of issues will be sorted out if we actually just balance the plate optimally. And I see so many clients and especially women terrified of carbohydrates, and then they eat bowls and bowls of salads with, let's say, with protein on there, and not even enough protein. And then I just start telling them, my dear, you're going to start eating carbs now. You're going to include carbohydrates in your diet. And hey, lo and behold, the fat loss happens, basically. But it's a fine balance.
Okay, well, you now have a very fancy scale, the in-body scale, and that's probably that helps you distinguish between what are they losing and what are they how the body composition is changing. Can you tell us about that? And let's, for argument's sake, say you have actually a patient that comes in a certain way. They look from the outside a certain way, and then when you look on this specific scale, you actually see a total different story, and actually something that is perhaps can be quite scary.
Yes, so I did see one or two patients recently where they have a normal BMI or body mass index, which is just the index between the height and your weight. You know, it's actually weight divided by height squared. Anyway, so they had a normal BMI, but when I looked on the in-body scale, the in-body 120 to be specific, it showed that their muscle mass was at the bottom range of normal, actually touching under normal levels, and they were over fat, which means the body fat composition for a female was over 30%. It was something like 35% or so. It was around there. So when I look at them, the way they look okay, you know, with a normal BMI score and so forth, but actually on the verge of being sarcopenic. In other words, their diet wasn't sufficiently high in proteins. So that was very interesting to see, and for me to be able to educate that patient then by looking at this report and discussing that in detail also opens their eyes to why I'm telling them certain things to implement in the diet or exercise-wise or whatever. It's like a holistic approach. Yeah, so that was very interesting. I must say that scale is the whole, it can change a practice and the way you work, definitely.
And there's also a fat measurement, measuring the visceral fat. What is visceral fat, and why is that so important to look whatever that score is?
Okay. Yeah, so that helps me a lot, and with my education part when I talk to patients. So visceral fat is the unhealthy, hard white fat that accumulates in the abdominal area between the organs. So that is your fat that's very pro-inflammatory, unhealthy, and can lead to and it shows an increased risk of chronic lifestyle diseases like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, etc. So when I show patients their visceral fat score, if that is higher than the normal that normal healthy amount or number, then they also understand why I educate them on certain things, and then they also enjoy seeing when they come in and climb on that scale. They have immense satisfaction with seeing that score coming down, moving down, and the fat mass moving down, while the lean muscle we try and keep as stable as possible. Yeah.
And besides the practice being in one location, you guys also started doing virtual consults. How's that been going?
It's actually quite enjoyable. I thought it will be, I will not be able to have that human touch with not sitting in front of a patient, literally. But I actually find it is quite personal or intimate when I've got a patient from Durban, one from Mossel Bay. Where was my others? I can't even remember. I think Cape Town. And I actually have one from, goodness gracious, I think looking up from Joburg area. So it's interesting and it's nice. And I find that they are quite the longer term patients. So they want to commit for 8 weeks or 12 weeks. And I see weekly sessions. So we cover a specific topic during every consultation. And yeah, so I do enjoy meeting up with them as well, using Zoom basically.
Yeah. And then obviously they just have to have the self-discipline, not only just to follow the instructions and to but also to weigh themselves and measure themselves. Do you give them sort of a how to say, listen, measure this and this and maybe take some photos or
Yes. Yeah, so that's very important because I don't have that in-body scale to help to motivate them. Just the other day, one of my patients mentioned that she lost 2 kilograms, but I think it's up to 13 or 14 centimeters already, just it's after 2 weeks of seeing or implementing the guidelines, or the meal plan and the guidelines I've given her. So it's important for them to actually take the measurements. And I send a handout to them to give them some tips on where to take the measurements and so forth. Yeah. And I ask them, I don't know if they do it, but I do ask them to take some photos, progress photos, because you forget how your body actually changed over time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing also about your business model is you almost trying to, and I say this in a good way, you're trying to chase the patient away. The reason why I'm saying that is you're not only giving the patient instruction, you actually want them to incorporate this in their daily lifestyle and actually try to do them for themselves in the long term, so that they should not be reliant on a dietitian for the rest of their life. They should come to a dietitian to learn the skills. So you're basically imparting skills to your clients, and then they need to go on.
Yes, definitely, because there's nothing worse like being on a diet and then being on a diet or off a diet and not understanding how nutrition works. So my main focus is education. Please get self-sufficient, learn how to read a food label, understand a food label, and how to implement it. Because you are not obviously going to eat from a meal plan given to you forever and ever. You want to go to a restaurant, or you want to eat a takeaway. You want to go into a shop and sometimes buy something in a packet or two or whatever. So you can understand. Oh, and the other thing is to be able to compare apples with apples. Not really, but you know what I'm saying. Like this mayonnaise with that mayonnaise, or this cream cheese with that cream cheese, or whatever you want to use. To just understand what the food label means and what will best suit your goals, be it lowering cholesterol or balancing blood sugar levels, or to maintain your calorie intake in a certain range for, let's say, fat loss goals or whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, just touching on food labels, and I think the big misleading thing is something says it as 0 sugar. What is it that we need to look out for when we get something that says, it's 0 sugar? Is when we turn that packet over and we compare it to something that has sugar in, it's more or less the same sort of product.
Yeah, first of all, let's say it is biscuits. You are not going to eat biscuits with the main aim to increase muscle mass, for instance, or something like that. So it depends on what your goal is in the first place. So so if your goal is, let's say, fat loss or weight maintenance or something like that, and the one cookie has, the claim is no added sugar, and you actually turn that package around and you look in the per 100 gram column and you see, oh my goodness, look at the carbohydrates, and it's very similar because it's no added sugars. They probably used sweetener, where the normal cookie has also carbohydrates in the form of flour, because that's what's being used in the non-added sugar cookie as well, and also in the normal cookie. And then they obviously have, in the form of sugar, there will also be a certain amount. So that is very misleading in the first place. So what you will actually want to look at is compare the kilojoules or the energy content of the two products. And if it's very similar, hey, goodness gracious, just enjoy the one you want to eat. You know, if it contains sugar or not, you know, because you're not going to, it's supposed to be seen as a treat and not as a main meal to eat the whole packet of biscuits. If you are a diabetic, obviously, then there's other things we look at. And if you want to lower your extremely high blood triglycerides, there's also another part that you will focus on and look at. Okay, so it depends on what your aim is or your goal.
Yeah. There's quite a bit of overlap in functional medicine with dietetics. What almost looks like, and this is quite a new field in South Africa, something that's been coming up quite a bit in the US. Do you think that is something that will spill over to South Africa at some stage?
I think there are quite a few dietitians who are already leaning towards it and looking into it. I don't know. Maybe some have attended the curriculum or the course. It's quite expensive and quite an investment to make. And I would love to do that. I find it very, very interesting. But in South Africa, we are not allowed to say that I am a pediatric dietitian or I am an ICU dietitian or you are a functional medicine dietitian and things like that. So I think that is the restraint. So if there are dietitians who actually are very well schooled in that field, we are not really able to or allowed to say or put a label on it that way.
Yeah, but be it as it may, whatever you want to call it, do you think there's any merit in treating patients with a functional medicine ethos?
Yes, I do think so.
And what is that?
What they say is when we look at functional medicine, they look at the root cause of the disease, whatever that might mean. So I think that it's also sitting and taking extra time with every patient and really uncover the why behind the why behind the why, and really understanding biochemistry and the functioning of every system in the body and putting the whole picture together and individualize, obviously, your approach. Obviously, blood tests and urine tests where they can test hormone levels. They call it the Dutch test. And then also GI mapping. That is another interesting field where they look at, we can find some parasites in there or some overgrown of the bad bacteria, basically, which can cause dysbiosis in your gut. And that's an interesting field as well, because the latest focus in research is the influence your gut microbiome actually have on your whole being. That will be a topic that we can talk about sometime as well. So it's a very interesting field, and if you focus a little bit more on functional nutrition that way, if you can do that extra learning or courses, I think it will definitely put you in the next level.
Okay. Yeah, we know quite a bit of couples that are dentists and dietitians. Do you think there's I don't want to say correlation, but why do you think we match so well together?
I actually counted them the other day again. I think we know 5 couples from in and around PE and East London, and the ones that we actually studied together and that type of thing. It must definitely be a personality, a combination, match up. Now just trying to figure out personality-wise, because I know dietitians are very analytical. And what would you say? How would you say?
I would just say the only reason I think that the dentists were so attracted to the dietitians with the uniforms at varsity.
So why would you say, why were the dietitians then attracted to the dentist at varsity? It's not your little outfits. No. Maybe the partying. I think you were more the I must say the dentists were the fun guys. Very approachable and nice as well, I think.
Yeah, it couldn't be our dress attire, because in our second year we were just smelling like chloroform and nicotine probably.
Yeah, mixed with some beer stains or something like that. Yeah, was quite a lot of partying happening then. Yeah, must be a personality thing, because we were quite a few couples that ended up together.
What do you think?
And still married, hey?
Yeah. What is when you look at the dentist that, I'm in a group practice, when you look at the dentist that I work with and all the others that you see, and that we in our social circles, we have quite a few dentists. What is there like one thread that goes through that you can say, this makes sense that they are dentists?
I would say old souls and a little bit sensitive. Like definitely not the robust, manly man type guys, like really, someone that can, don't take it wrong, but can be in touch with the feminine side, we're sensitive, that can listen, shows empathy. And I think that's actually important in the type of work you're doing as well. Definitely super nice, down-to-earth people, just in general, I think. And that's the thread of the ones, the people I know. Yeah, I would say. That's my summary.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Can you think of anything else I need to tell you?
Maybe just your contact details.
Oh, dat sal nogal goed wees, ja. Okay, so I'm Stephnie Engelbrecht. So I can be found on my website, www.nourishedonline.co.za. So if you want to read about my philosophy and my approach, that's actually a good place to start. I'm also on Facebook as Nourished Medical and Lifestyle Nutrition Therapy _ Stephnie Engelbrecht, or it's quite a mouthful. And then Instagram, I'm nourished.dietician there. So I do share some quite interesting facts and compare the pair and myth-busting things on there. So if you want to learn a little bit, have a look there. Yeah. So
okay.
that's me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.